We've all seen the chaotic scenes at shopping centres when, at the stroke of midnight, bargain hunters scramble to grab a share of the Black Friday discounts on offer. This display of consumerism is relatively new to our shores, but retailers are expecting sales records to be broken this weekend as shoppers take advantage of the deals available. But here's a question. What happens to all that stuff we buy at the shops when we're done with it? And how much harm is all that waste causing? The Drum's David Taylor has been looking into the problem.
Ghana, West Africa. Local retailers fight over the best items from an imported bale of used clothing. Almost half of these clothes won't be sold and end up in landfill. All up, more than 160 tonnes of textile waste every day. And during monsoon season, used clothes end up in waterways, sewers, and a tangled mess on beaches. Australians dump, on average, 23 kilograms of clothing, destined for landfill each year, according to government research.
To get your head around what a kilo of clothing looks like, 3 polo shirts can be made from a kilogram of material. So are we really throwing away 60 plus polo shirts every year?
Decomposing clothes in landfill release greenhouse gases, contributing to global warming, and leach toxic chemicals into the soil.
And the risk there is that rather than breaking down to carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas, they actually get broken down into methane, which is a far more potent greenhouse gas. And so the risk of throwing our clothing and our textile waste into landfill is that actually we're contributing to global warming.
But how does fashion end up in landfill when many Australians donate their used clothes to charity?
Unfortunately, then it becomes their responsibility, the charity shop's responsibility, to throw that clothing or that textile into the waste rather than ours. But the fate is the same. It ends up in those waste processing streams.
When charities in Australia can't sell donated clothing, tons of it ends up being exported to other countries that dump it in landfill. So what can be done? Well, industry researchers have come up with a possible solution, something called circular fashion.
So actually in the design of the material, creating something that in itself can be completely reused, recycled until end of life. And even then at end of life, the ideal goal in a completely circular economy would actually be to take that product and return it to where it started.
The government's chipping in to help. The Australian Fashion Council now has a $1 million government grant to work out ways of cutting waste. For such a massive project, $1 million, say researchers, won't achieve much. But if the industry can come up with a business-friendly plan to make more circular fashion, the hope is investors will fall over themselves to design a recycling outfit that works.
Now, Veena, this is your life's work and your life's passion. So all these people are rushing out to these Black Friday sales, and part of what they will buy will be fast fashion.
Yeah, it gives me nightmares just to picture all of that in my head.
Yeah. It's just extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, I read one statistic from the UN, 200 years to biodegrade, for this thing to biodegrade, and it's as toxic as discarded tyres.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I mean, this is the thing, right? I mean, we just assume that, just because we've sort of let it degrade in landfills or whatever, it's out there, it's all right. Well, it's clearly not all right, because we're also emitting greenhouse gas emissions while it's, sitting in landfills. We've now got all other potential chemicals that could be, toxic chemicals that could be leaching
into waterways.
Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, you think about this industry that actually has got, issues in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. You've got, of course, all the toxins. We've got basically questions around what are we going to do ultimately with all this excessive material that's being produced. And we just keep thinking it's okay to be discarding. I mean, the numbers were something like 23 kilograms, for every Australian per year that we're discarding.
And what's the recycling rate?
And the recycling rate is only 7%. So effectively what we are doing is more than 90% is ending up in landfill. And, the global figures aren't all that great either. You're looking at, again, 85% thereabouts that'll end up in landfill, getting incinerated, all of these things. So ultimately, what the world is really doing is taking all of this stuff. The fast fashion is literally so quickly being then put away into landfill, and then we're emitting all of these greenhouse gas emissions, we're creating all these pollutants. But in doing all of that, we have to ask ourselves a question. I mean, who are we doing this for? Ultimately, it's our planet, and we're using these resources. Half of it is actually plastics. When you think about all the synthetics that have gone into
polyester, nylon, that's plastic.
Exactly. So these are all these polymers that, of course, are fossil-based. So, even if you were basically saying, oh, well, it's okay, I'm going to kind of incinerate it, whatever, the point is you've actually created all these fossil-based materials that have then ended up being discarded. So why are we actually saying it's okay to make these materials, which of course contain synthetics, and then?
So when you see, we haven't even spoken about how these things get made and the exploitation of women and children in how these things are made. But when you see, as people will tonight when they go online and shopping, look at that, it's $10, a $10 T-shirt, a $30 jacket. What do you see when you see that?
I just see all of the resources that have gone into, first and foremost, making it, right? I mean, there's materials, there's energy, there's water. I mean, you're talking about, making products that we might see it as, oh, this is a bargain. But we're not seeing all those other hidden costs, all those externalities that basically, the world's paying a price for it. Our wallets might not be paying for it, but the planet's paying a price for it.
For more, we're joined by fashion editor at the Australian Glynis Trail, Nash. Always good to see you, Glynis.
You too, Ellen.
According to that same 2019 UN report, global clothing production doubled between 2000 and 2014, so that each year now 100 billion pieces of clothing are made. What happened?
Fast fashion happened, I guess. It got traction, and it's terrifying. And those scenes from Ghana and stuff, when I watched that documentary a while ago, it's horrifying to think where it's all ending up. Look, in Australia, as we well know, is when we are far from being innocent in all of this. We're the second largest consumers of fashion in the world after America.
So this is unlike our grandmothers going and buying one good outfit. This is being offered weekly, not every season, but every week, something new, every week, really cheap. That's what fast fashion is. Wear it twice, chuck it out, move on.
Absolutely. This whole concept of hashtag re-wearing something is just so bizarre to me, because I've always been brought up to, I'm of that generation that you bought things that you loved, you looked after them, you kept them. If once they're at their end of their lifespan with you, you might give them, we have clothing swaps with girlfriends, every few months. You might give them away. Eventually you might give them to charity. Worst case scenario, if it's a T-shirt, you cut it up, use it for rags. And only after you've exhausted every other possibility do you throw that item into the bin.
But that was when clothes used to have seams, right? So if you were breastfeeding, you could let the seam out. If you gained weight in menopause, you could let the seam out.
Seam allowance, there's a concept.
But actually these clothes don't do that. They're not designed to do that. You can't do that with them.
No, there's no margin for anything. It's like, buy it now, wear it now. It's not going to last past a few washes if you put it in a washing machine. It's just not made to last. So it's kind of equally hardly surprising that all this stuff ends up in landfill, and yet I'm astonished by the logic behind it. And I get it if you're young and you want something exciting and new, and social media has driven a lot of this, obviously. That's why this whole notion of re-wearing something is so foreign to very young consumers, because they want something that their friends on social media haven't yet seen. So it's an interesting situation that we're in.
Angela, there is a question about, for some people on low incomes, cheap fashion is the only choice. But I guess what we're talking about here is not, I can only afford a $10 T-shirt, but I'm buying a $10 T-shirt every fortnight. Now, you have repented in this department. You were guilty, and now you have repented.
I am reformed. My mother is about to hear my confession.
Okay.
So
Go ahead, sister.
I am wearing a jacket that is 15 years old.
Oh my God.
And
Excellent.
I hate shopping. I have to admit this first of all. I hate shopping.
That didn't stop you.
No, but I'm a methodical shopper. I would go out twice a year and buy everything that I thought I would need because I have 10 formal events. I know I'm going to have 16 corporate things, and I need to tick those things off. And every year, twice a year, 2 seasons, I would shop. Now, COVID stuffed all of that up because I wasn't going anywhere, least of all shopping, and I had nowhere to wear anything. And suddenly I discovered, Ellen, I had stuff in my cupboard that I hadn't worn yet. They still had tags on them. And I was so ashamed that I'd gotten to that point. All of COVID, I only wore my Ugg boots or my slippers, so I never wore any of my famous shoes. Didn't need my handbag to go from the couch to the table. So I made this self-discovery, and I promised myself I am not buying any new clothes for the next 2 years because I know I have enough. However, that said, I do get trolled and get some backlash on social media because people have said to me, "Oh, is that all she's got? Does she only have one jacket?" Doesn't
Really?
She have, yeah, because I'm out, clearly with my public life, I'm out a lot, and it looks like I wear 1 or 2 things at every event, and I admit it, I almost always wear black pants. That's just a uniform.
You should
it's
buy one
easy.
of those reversible jackets.
Well, I just think if you're used to seeing me in one, I'm a uniform person, small business, always loved wearing a uniform because it meant I could get up in the morning and I didn't have to worry about what I wear. And for me, I like to be easy and quick. I'm, dressed for comfort and speed as opposed to anything else. But I was shocked by my own behaviour. I know I'm letting down a lot of stores in the CBD. I'm sorry. But I'm eating more, so I'm supporting a whole other industry.
Let's hope your clothing.
If you get something of really good quality, I mean, this is the point, right? This is back when we think about the days of our mums who, it was always about good quality. And you got once a year, your beautiful birthday, outfit, and it was good quality. And, you were supposed to cherish that, and you sort of said, right, okay, and I'm going to try and make sure I fit into that for the next several years, because then this way I
They got a hole in them,
and if they'd had a hole in it,
Or
you actually
Auntie Mari
fixed it
did
and you
anyway,
repaired it. And I just remember my mum sort of cutting up old sort of, skirts and stuff. So go, look, it's new because I've attached a new pocket to it on the side. so it was great. And I actually go, well, actually that's useful because I needed to put, a bit of money into that. So I think to me it also comes back into quality, but also repair. That other important question around repairability.
Yeah.
If we can do that, wouldn't that be lovely? We'd create all these incredible new jobs where we'd be actually talking about people, showing their talents. I mean, to me, what I learned was, okay, well, actually, you can make something look new because you can make it functional. That whole sort of example of putting on brand new pockets and doing all of that was actually pretty cool. So that's how I actually learned how to repair my own clothes.
I want you to tell me about the tile you have in front of you, and this is recycling, but I want to issue the warning that you were speaking to us about earlier, which is it's great to recycle, but we can't recycle all this stuff. You can't pull the cotton out of polycotton material. That's a very hard thing to do, and even if you could, you'd have $1 million article at the end of it. But so we need to use less, but at the same time, there is hope for recycling. Tell us about this lovely tile.
Yeah, well, that's it, right? When we talk about recycling and we're talking about reforming, it's about, yes, we might make new clothes and repair and do all of that. But when we've got all these different types of materials, from the polyesters to all kinds of synthetics and others and natural materials mixed up together. What we're really saying is that you can make fibre to fibre and do all of that, but what if you could actually create a whole new product out of it?
So what's in this?
In this, we've actually got waste glass and waste textiles. So we've actually taken all kinds of old clothes that were beyond wear, or people might want to just, kind of not have this out into the hands of the public, all uniforms and things like that. And you basically go, okay, well, wait a minute. If I know that I can't give this out, it's not wearable, I can't give it out because these are uniforms, corporate uniforms or what have you. I mean, you need to be able to also value the fact that that material is highly functional. It's still very useful.
And I mean, this is waterproof, it is hard, it's industrial, you could put it around a pool.
That's exactly right. And this is where, for us, the exciting thing was, as we started developing all of this, that science then became more and more real. And we realized, okay, well, we're going to actually create more of these kinds of green ceramics. Because the more we did that, we could actually show that it's got all kinds of fabulous engineering qualities. So we could, we could measure its strength, and we could actually say, now, you know what, this is going to be useful for flooring, for all kinds of other building applications. But
and you're not going to name the people, but you're selling a lot of these things. You're not going to be a millionaire. But people are adopting this technology. This is affordable, functional technology.
That's exactly right. And I guess to us, this is the whole point, right? You need multiple pathways to think about recycling, but also reforming, because it's coming back to life in a brand new form. That means that we're not sending it away to landfill, and we're no longer having to make all the tiles from virgin resources. So the whole point about being able to not have to bring in expensive materials and products from overseas, but to be able to make that in your local factory that might be not that far away from where you are. So all of those benefits of thinking recycling, but manufacturing is the key word to bring with it.
Just a final one, Glynis, on this. Who should be responsible? Should consumers consume less? And I noticed that Chile, which has one of the driest deserts in the world, that desert is absolutely full of disused clothing. People can Google it. It's horrific. You've got this thing called the law of extended responsibility of the producer, which would force people importing used clothes or producing clothes in the first place to be responsible for the waste they generate. Is that taking things too far, or do we just put the Visa card away?
Look, I think, there's a much bandied around phrase in fashion, buy less, buy better. That's a start. So consumers do have a part to play, I believe. I think government has a huge part to play in this. There needs to be infrastructure around recycling, as we've seen, obviously, and we need to be building more facilities for that. We should not be sending our problem offshore for someone else to deal with and to clog someone else's waterways. So we need to be dealing with these things at home. There are lots of little individual within the industry, you've got lots of brands doing their own thing in this sense, like some brands doing recycled swimwear, for example, offer a sort of a take-back scheme. So they will collect your old swimwear and then they will send it offshore at the moment to be, repurposed.
Sounds suspicious.
It does.
Well, yes, and who is accountable?
The dog went to live on a farm.
Exactly.
So
like, it is
not
really
under the
fraught.
lemon tree. It's on
Exactly. So it's fraught. I think we all have a part to play, but I do think, ultimately, I do think we need more government intervention on this to just build the infrastructure.
I think local government has a big part to play in that, to make it accessible and to have that knowledge gap filled locally, because waste is one of the biggest crises that local government is facing and has faced, but is facing, because the choices are limited. And if we don't address that very quickly, what we've just seen before in those disturbing pictures is going to be in our backyard very quickly.